Out of the way, you. Oh.
Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder, saying it's just my opinion is for cowards. When a story is first conceptualized, the creators don't always know how the audience will react to every single character. Popular shows, movies, and even games usually do a great job making you care about the main characters, but there are some more minor characters that people just seem to grow to love. In all honesty, it's not that hard to predict. A lot of these characters can be more complex than the main characters, can have wilder storylines, and can have the most growth in the entire series, and everyone loves them for that. Although that doesn't mean that people would want to interact with these characters in real life, they're just fun to watch. These are 10 well-written breakout characters, in no particular order of course, just based off of when I thought of them. Number 1 is Fonzie from Happy Days. Let's start out with perhaps the most famous breakout character, perhaps one of the first in television history. At the start of Happy Days, Fonzie started out as a secondary character. Later, the writers were thinking about adding his name to the title of the show. Back when the series was coming out, the Fonz was considered the definition of cool. Back then, I'm not saying that now, of course, but Fonzie's popularity was so great that he became the face of a show and of a trope. You think of Happy Days, you think of Fonzie. Granted, he's also tied to its eventual death, but that's more because people weren't willing to let him and the series go. And that's a level of beloved no one could expect from a character they probably didn't put too much thought into at the start of the show.
We need to get out of here! The door's jammed! Push harder!
Number 2 is Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead. If you watched the show but never read the graphic novels, you might be surprised to find out that Daryl is in fact a show-only character. Starting out as a racist surviving redneck, Daryl evolved into the face of the show and eventually the entire series. Norman Reedus' face became iconic, so much so that he's perhaps the one character the writers were never willing to kill off. In fact, he is still going to this day with a spin-off show that I will never watch. Talk about continuing past your expiration date. But that's not Daryl's fault. He's just getting dragged forward through storylines that was never meant to factor him in at all. And it shows sometimes. It's weird to think that he might not have ever existed if someone made a different call at the start of The Walking Dead. It would have cost AMC and Norman Reedus a lot of money and fame. It might even have forced the series to end early. Now that's what I call a breakout character.
Impressive. Very nice.
Number 3 is Majima Goro from the Like a Dragon series. Now, this example isn't as drastic as the first two. While iconic in the Yakuza community, he's not the face of the franchise or anything. He might not even be the most popular overall, but for a character who is only playable twice, more like 1 1/10 times, his impact on the series is absolute. He's always factor in. Fans are always excited to see him. If he didn't show up and say Kiryu-chan, a lot of people would be disappointed in the game. What really makes him stand out is his persona. The prequel explains that he puts on a face of a psycho clown to hide how sad and angry he is. In a world of stoicism, he's the complete opposite, but at the same time the definition of hiding his emotions from the outside world. If you played the original PS2 game, you would never know just how much he would eventually mean to the series. Without him, I might not even be a fan myself, because I started with 0 and worked my way forward. So while Majima might not define the series, he's an important factor for a character who was just supposed to be a wild rival at the start, the opposite of the main character Kiryu, but also similar in a shocking number of ways. Number 4 is Dwight Schrute from The Office. Once again, Dwight isn't the face of his series, that's Michael. But there's no denying that Dwight contributed to the popularity of the series. His wild antics, odd values, and mesmerizing charisma makes it so that you cannot turn away from whatever it is he's doing. His growth is the most intense throughout the seasons. In fact, he might be the only reason to keep watching when Michael leaves. His looks, quotes and demeanor are iconic, making him the easiest character to recognize and to cosplay as. He's a flawed man with difficult relationships with almost everyone in the office. Many times, his heart isn't even in the right place, and his actions are nonsensical, but he's sure fun to watch and to see develop. It all ended with him, after all, putting a nice bow on a show that should have ended much sooner than what it did. Dwight went from an ignorant egomaniac to something much more, and that's impressive for a comedy show. Number 5 is Levi Ackerman from Attack on Titan. Now, it's not exactly hard to beat Eren when it comes to being popular in Attack on Titan. At the start and at the finish, his character is a mess. Levi, however, is a constant rock. He's the guy that will shut people up when they talk too much. He knows the harsh realities of fighting Titans. He cares about people in his own rough way, but shows moments of compassion to friends and people that he respects. Despite being a clean freak, he's the character most drenched in blood because he's an unstoppable killing machine that even the greatest of powers in his world would think twice about. Loyal until the end, steadfast in his beliefs, there's no doubt that he's the most popular character in the series, so much so that people wish that the franchise was about him instead of Eren, but that still isn't the case. Nothing will change the fact that he will always stand out when people think of Attack on Titan. Number 6 is Andy Dwyer from Parks and Rec. In this day and age, it's hard to imagine a time where Chris Pratt wasn't a household name. But there was a time like that before he became the heart and soul of Parks and Rec. Back when he was just the chubby guy. Andy was not meant to appear past season 1 in the show, but his charisma kept him around and made him a main character. You can feel the show without him when he's missing. And it's what pushed Pratt to be famous enough for Guardians of the Galaxy and the Lego Movie. The character was so breakout that it made Pratt's entire career. Now, you might not like how Pratt is in everything now, and I can understand that. If so, blame Andy Dwyer in Parks and Rec. It all started there when he was a breakout character.
Coincidence? I think not!
Number 7 is Handsome Jack from the Borderlands series. Name a character so good that the series was forced to bring him back multiple times. And then, when they finally did drop Handsome Jack, the series tanked in terms of writing. Just look at Borderlands 3. Handsome Jack tied Borderlands 2, the pre-sequel, and the Tales from the Borderlands game stories together. Rich, narcissistic, cruel, and hilarious. For the most part, you only ever hear Jack mocking you over the comm system, but boy does he make it fun. The character's raw charisma is one of the reasons Borderlands 2 is so beloved. With his tragic and complicated past, it's hard not to at least pity Jack until he takes that moment of weakness and punishes you with it until you're the one begging for mercy. Handsome Jack is the best part of Borderlands, and the series struggles without that breakout character anymore.
Stop! He's already dead!
Number 8 is the Genie from Aladdin. This is all due to Robin Williams. His performance is so iconic that he made the film. Imagine Aladdin without him. The title character is so terrible. Most of the other characters are silent, and Jasmine is good and deserves so much better than what she gets. Without Genie, the movie would fall apart, and none of the spin-offs, sequels, and games would have ever existed. Now, you might argue that would be a good thing, but I wouldn't be willing to part with Robin Williams' performance at all for anything. Genie is such a good character. No development is needed. If Aladdin just listened to him from the start, everything would be fine. Seeing him be free at the end is what makes the film have a happy ending, because Jasmine ending up with Aladdin is definitely not in her best interest. Honestly, the lamp should have gone to her. She should have wished for a better husband and then wished the genie to be free. That would have been a perfect ending for that breakout character.
I've made a huge mistake.
Number 9 is Roger Smith from American Dad. The Roger we know and love now is nothing like at the start of the series. His disguises and personas were never supposed to be the main focus. But Roger was so fun that the writers had him go from being an E.T. parody to the reason American Dad is so funny. Oftentimes, Roger is able to achieve the impossible with his different characters, teleporting, being in multiple places at once, fooling everyone despite not having any good disguises whatsoever, but it's sure fun to watch him make his wild personas interact in the world. And the writers have so much fun with him that they've retconned Roger's backstory multiple times at this point, all for the sake of comedy, and it's hilarious. Perhaps this one's reaching just a little bit, but I bet you cannot imagine American Dad without Roger Smith, and who would want to?
The teacher here is supposed to be the most intense and demanding instructor in all of clowning, and it's Roger, isn't it? It's gonna be Roger. All right.
Number 10 is Tony Stark from Iron Man and the Avengers. It might be hard to imagine now, but the Avengers and comic book movies in general weren't exactly famous crowd pleasers and all that popular. They always struggled until Iron Man in 2008. In fact, the character wasn't nearly as popular as it is today. It's all thanks to Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. He was the one who brought Iron Man to life, who made the MCU popular to begin with. Would it have still existed without him? Maybe, but it's hard to imagine those early years without him. Iron Man broke out as a character so much that it made Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., and the MCU into household names. There isn't a person in the modern world that doesn't know and think about them. Now people think of Iron Man when they think of Marvel and the Avengers, and that makes Iron Man the most breakout character ever. And those are 10 great breakout characters. This isn't a definitive list. I could think of more like Vegeta, so make sure to add someone that you think that I missed down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you disagree with any of this, that's fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion.
I am Iron Man.
Thank you all so much for watching.
You're still here?
Good night, everybody. Thank you. You bye. Boom.
Do not despair.